Welcome back to Connect the Conspiracy. That's right, Connect the Conspiracy is back for 2025. You can catch us the last Friday of each month as we dive into some of the most infamous conspiracies of all time. Today's topic, one of the greatest maritime disasters of all time. Or is it? That's right, the Titanic never sank. You've heard the story your entire life, but what if I told you it was all part of a massive orchestrated hoax? Sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? Well, buckle up, because this isn't just a story. It's a tangled web of conspiracy, corruption, and corporate greed. Let's begin with the version of the story you already know. The tale that's been passed down through generations and immortalized in books, documentaries, and of course, James Cameron's blockbuster film. On April 10th, 1912, the RMS Titanic, the most luxurious ship of its time, departed England for its maiden voyage to New York City. It was a marvel of engineering, marketed as unsinkable due to its state-of-the-art safety features. On board were over 2,000 passengers and crew, ranging from third-class immigrants hoping for a better life in America to some of the wealthiest individuals in the world. 4 days into the voyage, on the night of April 14th, the Titanic struck an iceberg in the freezing North Atlantic. The collision tore a gash in its hull, causing the ship to sink in under 3 hours. Over 1,500 people lost their lives in the freezing waters, making it one of the deadliest peacetime maritime disasters in history. The tragedy caused an uproar. It led to new maritime safety regulations, including lifeboat requirements and improved iceberg monitoring. The Titanic became a symbol of human hubris and fragility, a cautionary tale that continues to captivate the public over a century later. But here's the problem. What if none of that actually happened? What if the Titanic didn't sink at all? What if it was never the Titanic to begin with? What if the entire story was fabricated to cover up something much bigger, a conspiracy involving greed, insurance fraud, and the deliberate elimination of key individuals who stood in the way of powerful men? To understand the conspiracy, we need to start with a little history about the Titanic and its sister ships. The Titanic wasn't one of a kind vessel. It was part of a trio of ships built by the White Star Line, a prominent British shipping company. The three ships were called the Olympic-class liners, the RMS Olympic, the RMS Titanic, and the RMS Britannic. These ships were nearly identical in size and design, built to dominate the luxury transatlantic passenger market. The first of the trio, the Olympic, was launched in 1911. It was a massive success, but it wasn't without its problems. In September 1911, the Olympic collided with a British military ship, the HMS Hawke, near the Isle of Wight. The accident left the Olympic badly damaged. Its hull was twisted, and its keel, essentially the ship's backbone, was compromised. Here's the kicker. The Olympic was found at fault for the collision. That meant the White Star Line couldn't collect insurance money to cover the repairs, which were extensive and costly. This financial blow left the company scrambling for a way to recover its losses. Faced with financial ruin, the White Star Line concocted a desperate plan. They decided to swap the identities of the Olympic and the Titanic. Think about it. The two ships were nearly identical. Unless you're an expert in ship design, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. By disguising the damaged Olympic as the Titanic, the company could stage a tragic accident, scuttle the ship, sinking it intentionally, and collect a massive insurance payout. Meanwhile, the real Titanic would quietly take over as the Olympic and continue its service. All it would take was a new coat of paint, some nameplates, and a few cosmetic changes to fool the public. It was a bold plan, but the stakes were high, and the White Star Line had little to lose. Enter J.P. Morgan. This is where J.P. Morgan comes into the picture. If you don't know who he is, let me give you a quick rundown. J.P. Morgan was one of the most powerful men in the world at the time. A financier, industrialist, and robber baron who controlled vast swaths of the global economy. He also owned the International Mercantile Marine Company, which in turn owned the White Star Line. Morgan wasn't just a businessman, he was a ruthless operator who would do whatever it took to maintain and expand his empire. The White Star Line needed financial backing for its plan. Morgan was the man to provide it. But Morgan had more than just insurance money on his mind. At the time, he was lobbying for the creation of the Federal Reserve, a central banking system that would give him and his peers unprecedented control over the U.S. economy. However, not everyone was on board with this plan. Three of Morgan's biggest rivals, John Astor, Benjamin Guggenheim and Isidor Strass, were staunchly opposed to the Federal Reserve. And wouldn't you know it, all three of them just happened to be passengers on the Titanic's maiden voyage. The sinking of the Titanic wasn't just about insurance fraud. It was about eliminating obstacles. By ensuring that Astor, Guggenheim, and Strass were on the ship, Morgan could kill two birds with one stone, collect a massive insurance payout, and remove his political opponents in one fell swoop. What makes this even more suspicious is Morgan's own behavior. He had reserved a luxurious private suite on the Titanic for its maiden voyage, complete with a What makes this even more suspicious is Morgan's own behavior. He had reserved a luxurious private suite on the Titanic for its maiden voyage, complete with a personal promenade deck. But at the last minute, Morgan canceled his trip. His excuse? He said he was feeling ill. But witnesses later saw him in perfect health, vacationing in France. Doesn't take a genius to see the pattern here. Morgan knew what was coming and made sure he was far away when it happened. And then there's Milton Hershey, the founder of Hershey's Chocolate. Hershey had also booked passage on the Titanic, but canceled at the last minute. His excuse? Illness or work obligations, depending on which story you believe. Hershey's cancellation raises more questions than answers. At the time, Hershey was already building his chocolate empire. Could he have been tipped off about the disaster and chosen to stay away? Or was he, like Morgan, involved in the conspiracy? After all, Hershey went on to enjoy massive, uncontested success, despite his chocolate being objectively terrible. When the Titanic sank on April 15, 1912, the world was thrown into mourning, but behind the scenes, the White Star Line was collecting its insurance money. Meanwhile, Morgan had successfully eliminated his opponents, clearing the way for the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. And what about the shipwreck at the bottom of the Atlantic? The theory suggests that the wreckage we've been told is the Titanic is actually the Olympic. The switch was so seamless that even historians have been fooled. Skeptical? I don't blame you, but the details add up. Workers who helped build the Titanic reported seeing parts stamped with the name Olympic. Survivors of the disaster described features that were unique to the Olympic, not the Titanic. Even photographs of the two ships reveal subtle differences that support the theory. And let's not forget the bizarre behavior of J.P. Morgan and Milton Hershey. Their last-minute cancellations weren't just coincidences. They were calculated moves by men who knew what was about to happen. So what's the takeaway here? The Titanic disaster wasn't just an accident. It was part of a grand conspiracy involving insurance fraud, political assassination, and the consolidation of power by the world's elite. The story of the Titanic is a reminder that history isn't always what it seems. The truth is often buried beneath layers of lies, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it. Thank you for tuning in to our debut episode of Connected Conspiracy in 2025. If this blew your mind, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, always question the stories you've been told. Till next time, stay curious, keep searching for the truth. You know what time it is? Time to leave your comments in the comment section below. And give us a thumbs up if you like our video. Hit that subscribe button down below. Hit the bell notification button to be notified of future videos. And as always, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.